Well, hi, Farad. Good to catch up. We're here to talk about peak season planning. I guess we've now done the first half of the year. It's now first week of July. It's Prime Day next week, which is sort of, I guess, the starting gun of Christmas spend and people thinking about planning ahead for the rest of the year. Should we just very briefly touch on the first half of the year, how that's gone and how that's affecting our mindset and our clients' mindset going into planning for the second half of the year?
Yeah, I mean it's July, so it's obviously time to start thinking about Christmas. I think the first half has been interesting because I think we're obviously aware of what's going on in a macroeconomic environment, some of the challenges that we're seeing from interest rates and cost of living crisis, and those bits and pieces that are there. And I think that the reality has been there have been some clients in some sectors that have continued to perform a little bit better than you would have expected. There is consumer spending in some areas has been more resilient, particularly among the sort of mid levels and more affluent sort of demographics. And so I think that the story is probably for, particularly some of the beauty, hair care, sports, entertainment is better than expected. However, to be fair, there are sectors that are starting to struggle, right? There is certainly some stuff around fashion that we've seen been a lot softer in the first half. The grocery wars have made an impact for and you only have to look at who's taking share from who to understand what's going there. So, I mean, it's like all these pictures when it's a little bit more difficult. It's never really one size fits all, and I think that's would be very true in terms of what we've seen. And we did the launch for GHD in Duet in February, which is a £350 wet straightener thing, which flew. And so, do you know what? There's still a bit about good products in market. We'll still attract the consumers that are willing to spend on those areas. So, yeah, probably a little bit more optimistic than if you'd asked me in like February or March when we were looking forward to it. Is probably a fair assessment.
And I think obviously there's a lot of media attention around, media attention normally quite negative. It's what sells media and gets clicks, right? And is it that bad out there as perhaps the media are reporting it to be? There's not everyone has a mortgage. We're fully aware that actually a lot of people do have some disposable income to spend, and as you say, some of those sectors are being propped up quite nicely.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And there's a bit of post-pandemic behaviour around wanting to go out and be entertained and going on holiday that hasn't gone away yet, right? So you look at those sectors in terms of what people are spending, and it's been a lot better. Some of the more bottom end sort of fast casual stuff has been a bit more impacted because you would expect that because of the nature of the demographic that attracts. So no, and we haven't seen that. And if I look at particularly in the sports sector that we work in, that's generally been pretty buoyant. Pretty good across the board with numbers being sales, tickets, women's events, all of it being comparatively strong. Comparatively strong against what we've seen in previous years. So I definitely think there is a conscious choice selection of what consumers are doing, and there's still a bit more of I am willing to spend on experiences and events than on things piece, which has been going on for a while. But we are starting to see. You and I are both old enough to remember the last recession, and the lipstick effect and some of those types of behaviours, and we're starting to see some of those again in some of the sectors that we would expect to see the same patterns of behaviour. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a bit more about planning. I mean, historically now is when we start thinking about it, talking to our strategy teams, talking to our partners, and clients on the whole have been traditionally or historically engaged in that process from now onwards, right? Or wanting to have part of the meeting devoted to that. Where do you think clients are right now in terms of planning? And are we seeing this new normal world where actually it's more quarter by quarter, it's more quarterly short-term planning rather than 6-month planning and getting something down on the media plan? And then what are the challenges of that when actually booking with partners and publishers and media owners?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think there's also more of an emphasis on using this quarter that we're in to do a little bit of testing, particularly in the digital environment in terms of what's going to work and not work. But I think that the big challenges that we're kind of starting to see is that Q4 plan is almost not really even a Q4 plan anymore. It kind of starts in September. So you're seeing a sort of elongated, shorter planned window for this phase, a slightly elongated one for Q4. I think you're right in terms of, with more and more things going digital, the idea that we can actually do more and more things on a short-term basis without a lot of planning or delay decision making has become more and more apparent. However, particularly in Q4, when particularly a lot of our clients will do a lot of more work in the offline world, when you start thinking about TV or certain bits of out of home, that actually having a better, more structured planning cycle to ensure you get what you want is important. And we have seen that in areas where linear is quite a good example, actually, where there isn't actually enough of the stuff. So if you leave it too late, you're really not going to get anything. Not just what you don't want, not anything. And actually, you look at the out of home market. I think the last data I saw from a few months ago was 65% of all buys are now digital, but it's only 35% of all inventory. And so, even when we've seen it time and time again throughout the summer, there are slots and placements and locations where people really want to be. That stuff still goes more quickly with those that have a more traditional planning cycle. So, yes, there are elements I think you can be a bit more flexible about. Obviously, the digital stuff is the stuff that's there, but actually there are elements that you need to be a bit more considered about. And by the end of August, have a decision about what you're buying in some of those areas to make sure you get what you want.
And is it your sense that there are a lot of deals there out to be had, and it's worth waiting, or not this year?
I mean, it's a bit early to sort of tell. I get the sense so far that no, not really. I think that when you see deals that come into the market in that way, they tend to be very last minute opportunities. So you'll know how bad the environment is by, September, October, in terms of what people are looking at. But the one thing I would also add to that is, we talked about the first half of the year being better than expected, but clients were still a bit cautious about what they spent and what they did. Certainly for the ones that we're talking to, the budgets for Q4 are good. There hasn't been any attempt to sort of scale them back. And, if you're particularly the retail clients, if you're in that business, that's where the chunk of your revenue comes from. You've actually kept a little bit more powder to be a bit more aggressive with everything you're doing in that quarter because you thought that your situation would be worse. So, no, I hear sort of rumblings elsewhere that, people are talking about lots of deals to be done. And I think in some areas that will probably be true. It'll probably be true in print, and it'll probably be true in some elements of radio. But digitally, no. And I think also, for the quality inventory for a lot of customers, no, I don't think there's going to be a huge amount knocking around that kind of gets offered in that sort of way, unless you start seeing a particular sector of the economy really sort of tank and really want to withdraw a huge amount of spend, right? So the economy means the automotive guys really don't do September in a big way. With new car registrations because of supply chain and money, or everyone finally gets tired of going on holiday. So I think you're going to need something really quite distinct to happen to change that framework.
I think we're going to wrap up there because we're going to catch up every couple of weeks and just, I guess, see what the status is at this present point in time, because everything's changing so rapidly at the moment. So this will be the first of a regular series of chats about peak season planning. So thanks, Farid.
All right, cheers, Jim. See you later.
Cheers.